Greetings YouTube, CptMachine here, back for another video. This is not an RPG review and I really am sorry about that, although in a kind of way it will be a review. I've got my first ever video response in the form of a question, which was from the Orange 5. By the way, welcome to YouTube, mate. Great video. I turned the volume up a bit, but apart from that, great video, great presentation. Move the camera a bit so we can see your face, but apart from that, bang on. Can't wait to see more of your stuff. And he asked, and I'm sure you can see the original down there somewhere, because this will be a video response to his video, which is a video response to one of my videos, is, what is your favourite Final Fantasy game? And he also mentions the fact is that people's favourite Final Fantasy games are dependent on what they play first, and it's true to a majority of extent, but not in my case, because my first ever Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy 1 on the Nintendo, which I actually owned. It's one of the very few Final Fantasy games that saw the light of day in the UK. I think they got 3 in total, and the first 2 we got on the Nintendo. The third was Final Fantasy Begins or something. It's that kiddie one they did on the Super Nintendo, and that were it. Final Fantasy 3, which was actually Final Fantasy 6, got released in America, never got released over here, but we found out about it through an import magazine called Superplay, which used to talk a lot about American and Japanese games which we would never see. So I heard about this game long before I ever played it, and the answer to the question is Final Fantasy 6 is my favourite game. And there are many, many reasons as to why, and it's one of those infuriating things about living in a PAL region. Because Square have released a lot of games in the US. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But even if they've gone to the effort of regionalising them to put them in English, even then, translating it from wherever to Region 2, or whatever you want to call it in UK and Europe, they don't seem to make that final step. So there are games like, say, Front Mission 3, which is another Squaresoft game I really wanted to play, hasn't come over to England at all, despite it being a US release and having a US, and they've got an English translation. And that's really infuriating because, once again from Superplay, I'd read about the first Front Mission, and not only just had a read a review, but they also do exposés on it and do tell you where all the secret items were and give you in-depth character ideas and how to upgrade your character. In Front Mission 3, by the way, it's like Final Fantasy Tactics, but with mechs. It's a lot of fun. Done by Squaresoft, the same by people that did Final Fantasy. I did get to play it eventually through ZSNES, which was a Super Nintendo emulator. So I illegally downloaded the ROM and I played it. Yes, I know, I'm bad. You're not going to make me feel guilty about it because it was great. Fantastic. It's now available to buy on the PS1. I think it's called Final Fantasy Origins, although I could be wrong. If you're going to play or one of those, or another, if you're in the UK, you're going to play, I think you might be able to get it from there. If not, wherever you get your rarer games from. eBay is a good idea, but you might get price gouged. It's a good game. It's well worth picking up if you've got a PS1 or a PS2 that can play it. It's interesting to me because it's the only Final Fantasy game I know of that has no central character. 7 upwards, and 7's obviously when most people got into it because it got made big by PlayStation, which was also the big thing at the time. 7 onwards, they've always had one central character, Cloud, Squall, etc, etc, etc. And by the way, the Orange 5 did say that Final Fantasy 9 was his favourite. 9's pretty darn good. In fact, it's my favourite PlayStation Final Fantasy game that was actually built originally for the PlayStation. And the reason for that is it's such a huge return to form for the series. A lot of the staples that made it good back in Nintendo and Super Nintendo games were injected lovingly back into Final Fantasy 9. A lot of them were missing from 7 and 8, and that is what really riled me up about that. To me, playing Final Fantasy 7, even though it's a good game, is a bit like watching Spirit Within. You're thinking, how is this relevant to the other 6 games I've played before this? There you go. Now everyone's used to having guns and swords and motorcycles and all that jazz in Final Fantasy games. Although, thinking about it, there was mechs in Final Fantasy VI, so... Either way. There's no central character. There's no emo, whiny so-and-so to ruin the game for you by being the central character that the audience has to obsess over because that's where the camera's fixed. For the first third of the game, you have no choice about who is in your party because the story is multi-tiered. It's across multiple continents with people meeting each other, bumping into each other, escaping from each other, fighting each other, and it's only towards the end of the first act, as it were, where you actually get some control over your party composition. And the game accommodates for you and says, look, you have no central character, so we're going to change how the world reacts to you based upon which characters you have. So certain NPCs, which appear just to do nothing or give you very little advice, things like that, will suddenly become quite animate and have plot lines and quests and things like that if you have a particular character in your party. So there's lots of little Easter eggs like that, so there's plenty of reason to go back and play it with a different party composition. So that's quite good, and the characters you neglect level up slowly but regardless anyway, so you don't get to that point where you're halfway through the game you're thinking, you know what, I'd like to switch out one of these characters. The game doesn't penalise you that badly for it. But the thing that so you got like 8 to 12 characters, because there's so many core characters, then there's ones you have to find, and then there's secret ones. And the game, even with that random element of composition, will accommodate you, which is great. It's got a great overall arc and storyline, which is quite robust. It's complete. This is before the internet. This is before franchising went out of control and you had to read the book or the comic or go to the website or watch a video or buy the movie to get the full story. This is before any of that happened. So everything's self-contained in this one little game. Just lost my train of thought. I do apologise. Yeah, the magic system is, in my opinion, the best out of all of them. Up until 5, I think it was, magic system had pretty much fixed. You either had a situation where you could pick your character, as you did in Final Fantasy 1, and that accommodated what spells, if any, you could cast. And then later on, when the characters became named, they could cast magic based upon which character they were. That's kind of true at the start of 6, but it quickly changes when you can discovering espers, which are like GFs in Final Fantasy 8, which is a terrible game. And basically you can summon them in battle when they're bound to. You only have one at a time. And they'll also teach you magic. So you have this little progression bar which slowly fills up, and some fill up faster than others. And having these espers bound to will teach you certain magic. So if you want to have a character that's a really big spellcaster, you have to go through a lot of these, which means you have to go into a lot of battles. There's a bit of a busy work and grinding to it, but it's fun. I enjoy it. So all in all, and I've probably rambled far too long already for such a simple question, the answer is Final Fantasy VI. It's out for the PS1. I've heard rumours about it coming out for the DS. I don't know if that's true, because it has been a while since I last heard anything about that. If you've got access to a Super Nintendo emulator, you can find it on there quite easily. And that's it. So thank you for your time, guys. Goodbye.